Hey everyone, welcome back to the Craft Parenting Podcast, the podcast about two Cincinnati craft beer lovers with a parenting problem. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Joe Ludwig, and with me is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline. How's it going, Caroline?
Pretty good. I have felt fantastic all day. How have you felt all day?
I'm pleading the fifth on that.
Because we're breaking in podcast land, time is a construct. We've drunk 3 nights in a row. We recorded a Goza episode. We went to Zulala where someone drank beers.
You are putting the spotlight on me. This is not cool.
And now we're drinking with friends.
Yes, and we have a guest this week. Tony, welcome back to the podcast. You are a returning guest.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, hello.
We didn't scare him away.
No.
Yay!
I also enjoy that you called me friends. I'm me and my split personalities are here.
You make the room feel more full
I
with
try.
your presence.
Yeah,
Try.
so welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for being here. So we are going to talk about this week all about summer vacation and some of our favorite memories. Not necessarily like going away, but just the whole block of time. If you're in the U.S., it's typically June, July, August.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you do as a kid during that time? So what are some of our favorite memories from that? So let us dive in and get started. Okay, so Tony, guests go first. What are you drinking?
Oh, I am drinking the Blueberry Boy. I don't know actually what's it called. The Bumbleberry Honey Blueberry Ale from Fathead Brewery. It's award-winning. It's actually pretty good. I had just talking to friends about this beer recently, and I remember not having bad memories, but I remember being meh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually pretty good. So I can report back to them that it's not bad. So I appreciate raiding your fridge for this.
If we were right, we would have blueberries in the fridge, so we could put blueberries in the beer, so you'd have the proper experience.
I mean, it is very full frontal blueberry.
Well, and we did check the date on the bottom of the can, and it is pretty recent,
Yes.
so that helps out as well. And I picked that up in my recent trip to Canton, but my beer's more fresh than yours. Mine is from 525.
Oh, dang.
And Caroline, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Downstream Jam Dark Cherry Goza from Royal Docks Brewing Company in Canton, Ohio. It doesn't have a description, but it says, keep cold, drink fresh, think global, be vocal, drink local. It's 12 IBUs. Its original gravity is 11 degree sign P, and its finishing gravity is 2.1 degree sign P. Plato. Its original gravity was 11 Plato, and its finishing gravity was 2.1 Plato.
What are you talking about?
It's on the can.
It's
It took me a hot second to remember what the P meant, and I'm like 99% sure that it means Plato, having not Googled or looked that up in a very long time.
That's interesting. It tells you original gravity
I
and finishing
know.
gravity. I've never seen that on a can before.
I have not either, but I am here for it, and this is so much like jam that it is my jam. I am a huge fan.
Man, I feel like I should have read more of my can now. Mine says handcrafted, unfiltered, pour slowly. I didn't pour it. It's coming right out of the can. into my
I mean,
mouth.
technically, you're pouring
Pour
it slowly into
my
your mouth.
Oh, that is. So it's a Goza, but there's.
It is way more sweet than your standard Goza.
I'll say, is it almost more like a sour?
No.
Well, Gozas are.
Because they're like, I feel like I remember Goza being like refreshing, almost salty. Like,
Yes. So
Yeah, so we did a whole episode about this. So make sure you go back to that episode and learn all about it.
Bonus.
But a Goza,
yeah,
a
what I remember.
Goza is a Goza is a German style beer. It has sea salt and coriander in it,
Okay, yeah,
and it
yeah.
is
Spicy salt.
yeah. So it's kind of like a gateway sour. So it's not like Urban Artifact, like in your face tart sour, but it does have a little bit of sourness to it, and they're typically super refreshing, super low alcohol. The ones that we had are like 3.9%. This one's a little bit more.
I think
this one's 4.7%.
Did you have I think the first one I had was at Rheingeist. I was actually in their brewery.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't remember what it was called, but I remember thinking like, man, yeah, spicy, salty, refreshing.
Peach
Yeah.
Dodo.
Peach Dodo, yeah. I could not think of the name to save my life.
They're bringing it back right now. So
Oh, okay, gotcha.
'tis the season.
Okay, and I am drinking the Summer Ale by Samuel Adams.
You're like a few days early on that one. It's not yet summer. So
I mean, it is like 100 degrees out. Well, it was.
a little
It
bit.
might be 100 degrees out again.
By the time this episode drops.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows?
It's just be, I guess, just a reprieve for the weekend.
It is 5.3% ABV and 8 IBUs. Super refreshing. This is super refreshing.
I would like to argue that mine is more refreshing than yours. So
Yours is
maybe tone down the refreshing.
It is a citrus wheat ale. So
How would you compare? It's been a long time since I've had that. How would you compare that to like summer shandy? I feel like that's what people think of as like the.
there's no lemon. in
Okay.
this.
Oh, okay. I guess just because it's yellow, I'm like, probably is lemony.
Well, yeah.
It's just yellow. I just doesn't mean that it's in any way lemony.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's citrusy, but I wouldn't say it's a lemon.
Okay. Because that's like
a
summer shandy is like beer lemonade. That's what I always call summer shandy.
When I went to Germany as a 16-year-old, that's what I would go for. Would be they would call it a Radler.
Oh, okay.
And most people in America think of Radler, they think of grapefruit.
hmm
It's beer and grapefruit juice. But in Germany, back then at least, we were at a festival and they had this thing called a Radler, which is a wheat beer or a Pils, I think, with half Pils, half lemonade,
Okay.
essentially.
Gotcha.
And as a 16-year-old, you could drink. And it was enough alcohol, you know. It was new. I had 0 tolerance at that time, but
Now you're a big boy drinking big beers.
yes. So it was a good, like, you know, you're traveling and being responsible without being responsible sort of thing.
Yeah.
hmm
But yeah, this is citrusy, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's like lemon. Kind of like a Blue Moon, like it with orange. It's more orangey, I think.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on. All right, so now it is time for What's Bugging Caroline in Children's TV, where you, Caroline, tell us all about the lack of physics and logic in children's television. So what is bugging you this week?
So, in the most recent episode of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse that we have watched, it is all about Daisy O'Dare, who's like Indiana Jones, but not Indiana Jones. I guess not as much like Indiana Jones as Kansas City Mickey is.
Yeah, not to be confused with Kansas City Mickey.
Kansas City Mickey. Oh my! But Daisy has a song too, which she sings. And then my first gripe on the show is Daisy's about to start singing again, and Professor Von Drake is like, "Oh, hold up, girl. Let me tell you some stuff." Because it's just like constant interruptions. As a woman, you just have to get used to it. So yeah, so Daisy gets interrupted, and I am not here for that. Let women speak. We have voices too. We should also be heard. And then in addition, so Daisy has to find all of the puzzle pieces to figure out the location of the golden Boo Boo chicken.
Oh.
I think it's just a golden Boo Boo, but it's Boo Boo chicken and gold. And so she's going to all these different places to find the puzzle pieces. And one of the puzzle pieces she gets from Trader Don, who is Donald. And
Trader, like he's trading, not traitor. Right?
Yeah, trader,
Okay.
not traitor. And he is working with Countess Clarabelle, who is magic, or she's like a magician or whatever. And so we're going to play a matching game where she's going to show us 6 cards with 3 different shapes. And you have to match the shapes once she flips the cards over. And so she's like, here, let me flip over a card. It's a heart. Do you remember where the other heart is? Is it this card? And then proceeds to flip over a card that is not the heart. Oh, no, it's not. Let's put it back. Is it this card? And then Daisy's like, yeah, I think it's that card. What do you think? And it's like, oh, hey, look, it's the right card. Well, yeah, because you gave me 2 shots to find it. You weren't supposed to flip it over the first time until we said yes to flipping it over. So, like, I get that it's like teaching children how to play kind of matching card games, but that is not the rules for matching card games at all. You get one shot, and that's it. So play by your own rules, Clarabelle. Don't break them as soon as you tell me what they are. Or at least change the rules. Like, just don't...
Seems like she was house ruling this card game.
She totally was. It's a good thing Steven wasn't involved.
The card game was just terrible. Let's be honest.
It was a very simple matching card game. Anything less than 10 cards, don't even bother. Like, Elliot's attention span needs at least 20 to stay invested in it. As he is climbing onto the back of the couch and just banging his head against the window. Oh my goodness. That second child, man. He gonna drive me crazy.
Jumping off the couch.
Yeah. But I mean, he was climbing up the playset all on his own on Thursday until he tried to climb up the playset with the ball. And then he could not do that.
All right. Is that everything that's bugging you this week?
Yes. But for the record, Elliot did not fall off of the playset. I took the ball from him, put the ball at the top of the playset so he could climb up the ladder on his own. No toddlers or preschoolers were harmed this weekend / week.
All right, so now on to the main topic of this week's episode, where we are going to talk about our favorite summer vacation memories.
School's out for the summer.
So, Tony, why don't you talk just briefly about your family situation? How many siblings do you have, and what was that like growing up?
Yeah.
Just very briefly.
Yeah. So I'm the youngest of 6. So there's 8 of us total, count my parents. And yeah, there's a pretty big age gap. So there's my oldest brother is 15 and a half years older. So we're pretty spread out. We're all very close though. And so being the youngest and being that big age gap, we didn't do a lot of traveling growing up. We did some, but my parents hate to travel. And so we did select trips occasionally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you grew up in Kentucky, I guess I can say that.
Yeah.
So did you grow up on a farm, or did you grow up in like a neighborhood, like
suburbia?
Yeah,
Kentucky. Yeah. It's so I grew up in northern Kentucky, so which is the tri-state area. I would basically call it Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to confirm that.
There you go.
Okay, so I guess Caroline, you didn't put anything in here, did you?
Oh man,
I haven't had time to. I was busy cleaning your parents' house.
Okay, so I'll start, and then we can kind of just play out. I don't have to. I have bullet points, but I don't have to talk about all of it. But I'll start. The big thing with summer, one of the earliest memories that I have as a little kid, like first grade, second grade maybe, was catching lightning bugs, and that phrase is a very Midwestern phrase. Some people call them fireflies. They would be wrong.
It's funny you say that. I feel like I've transitioned into calling them fireflies, but then I might have called it a lightning bug because we just last night I was at my brother and his wife's house, and Claire's like, "Oh my gosh, someone's getting in the house," and I was like, "Oh, I think I called it a lightning bug." As I'm about to say, I called it a lightning bug.
Yeah, I'm like, that's usually what I end up calling them, is lightning bugs. Sometimes I call them fireflies, just because it's like, oh, hey, we watched a lot of the TV show Firefly. Let me ingrain this deeper into my subconscious to say even more. Yeah, but no, I would do that too.
And we had a special container for I almost said it, the lightning bugs. So we had like a plastic case or whatever, and we would go around and catch them.
Mine was literally just catch and then release.
Yeah, we did that too. There was one time so we had there was a couple different kids in the neighborhood. So we were, a group of neighborhood friends. And I know my brother Ricky and his friend Daryl across the street, they caught a bunch and they'd put them in some kind of jar with holes on the top. And they brought it in the house, and I caught a lot of them. And I think they had cut some of the holes too large, so all of the lightning bugs got out at some point. No. And so there were just like mass lightning bugs in the Manley household, and I think they were not excited about that. But I mean, they eventually caught them all and released them and stuff. But it was just kind of one of those things you don't think about as a kid.
This is why we don't bring these into the house anymore. See, I remember setting up the tent. Like my dad's like super old tent did not have a fly in the backyard, with the intention that me and my friends were going to stay the night in it. and go camping under the stars and stuff. But we like filled it up with lightning bugs to then like let them all back out again. And they're like, my mom was like, you know what? Maybe you don't sleep in the tent. Maybe come sleep inside. And so we slept inside. And it was a good thing that we did, because since the tent did not have a rain fly.
Oh, no.
I don't think that it had rained, but there was enough dew that just soaked through the tent that there was a puddle in the bottom of the tent in the morning. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I mean, the tent was definitely way older than me. It was an A-frame tent with metal poles that you had to like join together to make into a tent. Definitely not a style of tent that you'd be able to find anywhere anymore.
So one of your memories would be then to camp out in your backyard?
That was the only time that we ever did that.
Oh, it was the only time. Well, it's still a memory.
We would go play in the woods behind my house a lot.
Okay.
Because at some point, a Boy Scout at LaSalle had put a walking trail that like we could easily get to from my backyard, but like you didn't know how to get to my house from the walking trail. You probably did, but
were you allowed to go in the woods?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we played in the woods all the time.
Okay.
And then there was like a group of girls and there was a group of boys, and we would fight each other. Like we legit like sharpened sticks at one point.
Oh, dang.
God.
Blood was never drawn, but there was definitely some like we do not get along vibes going on.
Oh, dang.
And then later on in those same woods, I got the cops called on me because me and a friend were playing paintball, and someone in my neighborhood said that we were terrorists training. And the cop was like, yeah, you just have to stay in your own backyard now. I'm sorry. Because
how old were you when that happened? Or like what grade?
That would have been like sophomore or junior year of high school.
I was wondering, is this like a post 9/11 type?
It was post 9/11, but it was like far enough post 9/11.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like immediate post 9/11.
No, and it's like we had like wandered like 3 or 4 houses.
Did you have
down.
paintball guns on you when he stopped you?
We were walking out of the woods in our gear. Like I think we were like just pulling up our masks, and he was like, "Hey, paintballers! Like, hey, yo, this is FYI." Because I think like our property technically went like 20 or so feet into the woods, and then it was like LaSalle's. So you'd mostly hang out like in LaSalle's property, technically. But we could go like the whole. So like my house was at the bottom of the hill. We could get to the top of the hill, like through the woods. So we could get to each other's houses if we wanted to.
Okay.
So we hung out in the woods a lot.
That's fair.
And then eventually the neighbor kids drank in the woods behind our house one day. They were so stupid. Because they had a Kroger bag that they hung in the tree and they put all their cans in, and then they just left it in the tree.
Oh, dang.
And our neighborhood was the early days of a giant community mailbox where you have your own little slot versus like everybody has their own mailbox. So my mom posted a note on the community mailbox and said, "Hey, somebody left a bunch of beer cans back behind my house. Come get them." And she said a few hours later, some teenager wandered into our backyard to come collect all of his garbage, and he looked a little ashamed of himself.
Well, you were talking about the neighborhood kids. We had neighborhood kids in our neighborhood as well, suburbia. There's a group of, it was me, my brother, my friend, her brother, and then my other friend and his sister. So it was a pretty decent group, and we would play Ghost in the Graveyard. Did you guys play that?
I'm trying to think. We played Manhunt. We played a lot of tag.
It was basically tag.
Yeah.
We would call it Ghost in the Graveyard.
We played Ghost in the Graveyard too. Because like you would count and it'd be like it's 1 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock. There was a phrase that you said that I don't entirely remember.
1 o'clock, the ghost isn't here.
Oh yeah, that's what you would do. And then when it got to midnight, the ghost is here, and then whoever was it would start going for people.
My nephews are playing this recently, and I don't believe I'd ever have played this. And so recent-ish. I don't know. Recent is sometimes a broad word.
We would wander throughout the neighborhood and run behind houses, go in the woods. Not at night, but we would go in the woods during the day for sure.
Yeah. So there was Ghost in the Graveyard. There was Candle Tag. So that was like tag where like you like had to count down.
Oh yeah.
And so like you'd say you have to like count. So if you get tagged, and you have to like count down.
It was
from
like
10.
freeze
Candle.
tag.
And if nobody tagged, like if nobody that wasn't it, so because it would be like if you and me were playing and Joe was it and Joe tagged me, I would have to count down from 10, and if you didn't get to me before I got to 0, I was out. But if you got to me before that, I could get back in.
Oh, interesting.
We would play this in gym class.
And there was also toilet tag.
There's like every tag in the world.
So toilet tag is similar, but when you're tagged, you mildly assume the shape of a toilet and you have a handle. And in order to get unfrozen, someone has to flush your handle. And then I think you
Oh my
spin.
gosh. How hilarious. We did a lot of tag. We did like, it's funny that you said that just because like, we did turtle tag. Because we were like in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And like you were running and it was actually just to be safe. If someone's getting too close to you, you could just go into your turtle shell and they couldn't tag you while you're in the turtle shell. And you had to like wait for them to leave and you could get up and run around again. And we did TV tag, which had something about shouting TV shows. I don't know if it was like to unfreeze or not. There was definitely freeze tag.
Yeah.
We made a lot of games. We were though. I guess
TV tag. I remember that briefly, but I don't remember the.
That's what I mean.
rules.
I don't either. Like I just remember shouting TV shows.
We
But
would
it's
play some of these games like in gym class.
the main thing I remember from gym class, which is not really a summer memory, but the main thing I remember in gym class was we played Medic, which is always like everybody loved Medic. I don't know if you ever played this. It was dodgeball, but they had like those little floor scooters that you sit on and like use your feet. And so like you could carry it too because it had the 2 handles and the 4 wheels, and you could use it to block balls that would come in. But anybody that got hit would have to sit down right where they were. And you would run, like if you were the medic, you would run out to him and you put him on the medic thing and you drag him to the back.
Oh my god!
Oh,
How
man.
fun!
Oh yeah, if you got them to the back, then they were back in, and so like people would try to take out the medics because basically that was the like you have to get rid of the medics so you can't keep reviving everybody.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So Ghost in the Graveyard, that was a big summer, and
Flashlight tag was another one too.
I briefly remember that, but Ghost in the Graveyard was the big one for us. I don't remember the rules.
I don't remember the rules for Ghost in the Graveyard either. I just
No, I
remember
know
playing-
for a flashlight tag.
Oh, so flashlight tag. Whoever's it has a flashlight, and they have to like get you good with the flashlight. So like they have to like light up your chest, and then they've tagged you.
Interesting.
So it's not like physical tag; it's you're getting tagged with a light object.
Okay, cool. I guess summer was always a time when we would always be allowed to stay up late, and I feel like late would be like 9 o'clock or something.
I'll say,
It's so silly now when I'm an adult.
yeah. I'll say I don't know that we had. I think we had a bedtime. I know it was always later than like. That's always the benefit of being the youngest. It's always like, oh my gosh, you let him stay up so much later than we were allowed to stay
Well, this
up.
was like playing outside.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think too on that because when you talked about Manhunt and Flashlight Tag, I was like, I don't know if I was ever. There were times I was outside later, but I feel like if it was like when friends were staying over and we'd be hanging out in my backyard, like literally my exact backyard with friends that were going to stay there, not like running around the neighborhood in the dark.
Yeah.
Until I got older. As I got older, it was more of a thing to maybe wander around in the neighborhood when it was darker. Because I grew up, I did talk about suburbia. This is a little like the suburbia you live in is different than the suburbia I grew up in because I grew up like on a hill where like it was a neighborhood up there, like a decent sized neighborhood, but it was like there was nothing else up there besides that neighborhood. So you'd have to like it was I think a little safer for your kid to like wander around. Like maybe the danger was like seeing a deer or something.
Yeah. So
nature.
Yeah, versus
oh,
like
no.
random person in like downtown.
yeah. So my neighborhood is the neighborhood I grew up in. The street that I grew up in was a double cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay.
So it was the very back of the neighborhood. You've probably
So kind of similar, though, I guess similar in terms of like seclusion. Like
yeah, it's
like-
right behind St. Joe's Orphanage. So you've probably ran that neighborhood.
more than likely.
Yeah. It's
All of the orchards.
Edger,
Maybe.
it's right behind LaSalle.
Oh, yes, I have gone across from LaSalle. Yes, I have
Mhm.
many a time. More so, I go to the street like it is. Oh yeah, I think I always read it as Edgar.
Edgar, yeah,
It's
Edger.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
at the very end of that neighborhood is where my parents live.
Okay, so they still live over there now.
Yeah, they're moving out.
I know. Yeah, so they're moving. Yeah, not to get
Yeah.
to that, but
Yeah, so
Um,
they are. They have a foundation. Hopefully by September the house will be built.
Yeah.
So we're helping them get their house on the market now.
So it was secluded. So it's not like
So,
it
yeah.
was. There was a lot of traffic or anything. I was probably older, like third grade, when we
Mhm.
did that.
And I still like as I got older, it's like stay at friends' houses, and friends' houses lived in different neighborhoods, and like I had some that lived more like so I grew up in Southgate / Fort Thomas, more so Southgate, But then like I had friends that live more like Southgate, Newport, and that was a little more like we would like walk down to the Ameristop and get an icy, like
Oh yeah.
be more. So like I think of that as more of like it's still suburbia, but it's more like city adjacent, or a little more city adjacent versus like literally there's just the suburbs and like next to a golf course, like next to the woods.
I used to also have an Ameristop that I would walk to that no longer is an Ameristop, but we were only
was that
allowed.
the BP?
Yeah, we were only allowed to walk to it when we had one of our parents' cell phones on us, because there was a hotel across the street that was known for potentially renting rooms for an hour or so. So it was like, it's a well-traveled road, so the odds of something happening to you are very slim because there's always going to be people driving by. But yeah, you need to always have one of our phones on you when you go. And it was like very early days of cell phones.
Well, I was gonna say, how old were you when you were doing this? Because when I was walking to the Ameristop, I don't think my parents owned a cell phone.
Yeah,
I remember carrying my parents' beeper around to like I'd be like going out we'd like bike around my neighborhood with my friends and be like, we'll beep you for dinner to come home, so I get like the pager that my parents would give me would like get paged to come back home.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was definitely very rare that we had that like my parents had a cell phone, but this would have been like when I was like, I guess like 9 to 13.
I guess I also forget parents are very late adopters to any form of technology.
Yeah, we had Windows Millennium on our desktop computer, which is traditionally a version of Windows that you probably haven't heard of before.
Is that Windows Me?
Yes, or maybe we had Windows 2000. No,
we
had Windows
had
2000.
we had DOS.
So no. we specifically got Windows 2000 on our desktop, which is traditionally a Windows system that was for servers, not for home personal use.
We had Windows 2000.
One of the two. Now you're making me doubt which one it was. Because no, there's a difference between 2000 and Millennium.
There's a difference. I think it's Millennium, maybe, what you're thinking.
So, because it was the first Windows that worked with a DVD player. So we got a DVD player put into the desktop, and then my dad would carry the desktop downstairs, hook it into our TV. So you'd have to like finagle the mouse around on your giant TV to then select the DVD player to play one of like 5 DVDs that were available at the time. So we had Gladiator and we had The Patriot, because I think we might have even been like borrowing both of them from someone. Like we didn't even own any DVDs yet, but we wanted the potential.
Oh yeah.
And then I got Charlie's Angels for Easter that year.
I haven't seen Charlie's Angels. I heard it was bad though.
I watched that movie a lot. It's a really good movie, Joe.
Okay. So in the summer, when I was growing up, I would during the day, like if there was nothing, if the kids weren't around or whatever. A lot of my friends did move. The neighborhood kids, they moved by the time I was in 7th grade. I was like the only like person my age on the street. So I would ride my bike a lot in the neighborhood. It's a big neighborhood, as we alluded to, the neighborhood that I grew up in. Lots of cul-de-sacs.
Lots of hills.
Yeah, I would ride my bike a lot. And later, when I was older, probably like 8th grade, I would ride my bike to the Blockbuster.
Oh man, that's a far ride.
Yeah. So I would ride my bike to the Blockbuster, which was where the Kroger gas station is now. There used to be a standing building. I don't know. It was still there when you were. It was empty.
It was probably a preschool for a hot
second. By the Kroger right by my house.
In Mulberry Heights. Yeah.
It was, the building was there, and you could tell it was a Blockbuster. I don't know if it still said Blockbuster or it was just very obvious, like faded and stuff. Yes, because now that's a gas station area. Because I was kind of sad when they put the gas station there, because I used to always park at that little spot when you get right in.
Yeah.
And now you got to get a little more into the parking lot to actually park.
So I would ride my bike to that Blockbuster. Not a lot, but enough.
Yeah.
And
Enough that it's a strong memory.
Yeah. I enjoyed Blockbuster. I would get games. I remember renting Mega Man X or Mega Man Legends.
Oh, yeah. I
that
enjoy
was,
both.
Mega Man Legends, I think, was like more of an RPG than.
Yeah, it was a 3D Mega Man game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think renting games was such a weird concept because I never finished it, but I had to return the game. I think I still have the saved file on the memory card.
Oh yeah, I definitely have a field day of renting games as a kid, or just going to Blockbuster in general. We got it. Ours wasn't really tied to summer though. Ours was more tied to just like if we did well on our report card every quarter, my parents would like let us rent a game, and that was always just exciting.
Oh yeah.
Summer to me though, like if I just think generically about what I think of summer, I think of running around the neighborhood with the neighborhood kids in general.
For sure.
Like just if that's like a tied to memory, because like we had the Brockschmidts, the Manleys, the Johnsons, and then ourselves were like literally all like 4 houses close together. We ran around together a lot. But then my neighborhood was technically, I guess, just 5 streets, and there was also like friends on each of the other streets as well that like we would connect with and run around with and do stuff with. And I don't know that I have like strong like we would just make up games. We weren't allowed to technically go in the woods. It was strongly discouraged, but we would venture into the woods.
Well, because there was the options where it was the high school or just like more woods. So it wasn't like woods between the neighborhood and the highway.
Ours was I guess like woods.
Yeah, it was pretty light, and it was
like you could see the other side of the woods.
Oh no, this is just woods.
Yeah, so from her backyard, yeah, you could see the baseball fields,
gotcha,
the LaSalle baseball fields.
Gotcha, yeah.
Especially when they did their baseball field expansion and knocked out like a third of the woods between the house.
Yeah, we did do a lot of home run derby though. That was always fun. Which we do it from like our driveway, and it'd always be like we'd want to like hit the neighbors' roofs. And it always be like we would do that until basically I think we would like hit something we shouldn't, and then it'd be like scatter.
So, were you playing with a tennis ball or a baseball?
I believe we played with a tennis ball.
Okay, that's the right way to do it.
And a yellow bat. Like yellow, classic
the wiffle ball bat.
Yellow wiffle ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I have memory of the kids who lived across the street from us. Their parents were out for the day, and they decided they were going to be slick and play with the baseball instead of a tennis ball.
Break some windows. And
second base was always like the middle of our driveway. I never played with them, but they would always play like in our driveway because first and third base would end up in the middle of the street. And they decided they were going to play with an actual baseball one day, and they busted one of our windows. Fortunately, it was only the front pane, but they like the mom found out about it because she like opened the window and was like, "Hey, this is cracked." I'm like, I don't know how long it's been cracked. And she's like, I did hear a whack that didn't quite sound right the other day. Because you could tell whenever her house got hit with a tennis ball that it was tennis ball.
Yeah.
So she knocked on the neighbor's door and was like, hey. And they're like, let me talk to the kids. And, oh, yeah, they're gonna do a lot of chores for you here real soon. And we're going to get that window replaced.
Was that the Klings?
Yes, that was.
Was it Melissa and Matt?
I don't know which one of them was the one. Because weren't there like 4 of them? So I don't know if it might have been one of their older
Melissa and Matt
siblings.
were the twins.
Yeah.
I went to school with them.
It could have been them or it could have been one of their older siblings. But yeah, so they would do that in our neighborhood, in our driveway. But I was a little bit younger than them, so I mostly ran around with the other kids. And so I'd be down the street. And like one of the guys taught me how to throw a football. So I can kind of throw a football.
Go the spiral.
Yeah, that's about the only thing that I can throw with semi-accuracy.
Did you used to play in the street?
Not a whole lot. I mean, since we were at the end of a cul-de-sac, towards the end of a cul-de-sac. So like there wasn't a whole lot of reason to go back by our house, but it was still like I was on a hill.
You were at basically the top of the hill, and the cul-de-sac was at the bottom.
Okay.
No, so it was a hill to a hill. So like our house was towards the bottom of the hill. So like at the top of the hill, there was a street that also went off that some of my friends lived on. And then you'd go down the hill and there'd be my house towards the bottom of the hill. And then you'd go up the hill again and there'd be a cul-de-sac. So a lot of people that I hung out with were at the cul-de-sac. So we'd hang out in the cul-de-sac because that was usually pretty safe. But being in the street at my house was not always the best idea.
That's fair. I'll say we were so my parents' street, it connects 2 other streets. Like one goes downhill, the other one goes uphill. And they're like a relatively flat street connecting in between. And because again, we're up on that hill, it's one entrance into the neighborhood. Very rarely are cars driving. So we were always in the street. Like we used to have like 2 lacrosse rackets and we'd like just throw a tennis ball back and forth. I used to always get those like massive balls in like the stores that you see like the big thing. And we would just like all take turns like kicking those back and forth.
Yeah.
We'd get on the swings and we'd like roll the ball and like kick it really far. I don't know. We just ran around a lot in the street. And the one neighbors I remember, probably like a strong summer memory, is like the Johnsons. They're it's funny. Denise is actually, she's like the traffic lady now or whatever on one of the like news stations. Whenever it was like summer, if it was nice out, she like didn't want them inside, or like if they were hanging out with friends, wanted us to be like running around outside. So we'd always do that a lot. But they would always have like for their birthdays like a big like, maybe it wasn't always, but I remember one distinctly. They had like a big like water fight. They had so many water balloons. Everybody had all these water guns.
Oh yeah.
And just literally ran around their whole yard, the neighborhood, like just giant water fight. And it's a very good strong memory. And I think too, like we did a lot of Nerf gun stuff too, like running around the neighborhood with Nerf guns. I remember we had an ice cream truck that came up into the neighborhood, and we were trying to chase it down to get it. And my brother had one of those like Nerf bazookas, and it like accidentally shot it and like nailed the back of the ice cream truck. And the guy kind of freaked out just because I guess how it hit. But yeah, I don't know. Just I have a lot of good memories around my neighborhood.
Just goofing off, killing time, having fun with friends. Yeah. Well, going back to the bike, I just kind of remember this because you were talking about hanging out. My dad built a bike ramp for us, like out of wood.
Oh, nice.
Just like a ramp.
Like jump.
Janky, yeah. And we would do that. We would, ride our bikes and go off the ramp, and that was pretty fun. That's not really a summer memory, but it's a memory that I had when you were talking about, goofing around and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Another memory, speaking of your neighborhood, Caroline, my best friend lived at the very front of your neighborhood in LaSalle's place. And I don't know how we figured it out, but we figured out a way because he lived on this side of LaSalle and I lived on basically this side of LaSalle. We figured out a way to walk to each other's houses. So he had a pool at his house. And so during the summer, I would walk basically
past my house,
past your house, because we found a trail in the woods. The woods was like 5 feet. It was not 5 feet, but
before the woods started getting massively overgrown.
Yeah,
there was a path.
There was a path, but when I say woods, I mean like a little bit of trees, like as long as this table, basically.
Okay.
Like 10 to 20
long,
feet.
But it was long this way.
Yeah.
Versus like wide. So we would go through the woods and we would go down the hill, and we would end up 2 doors down from her house, and then we would walk to the front of the neighborhood, probably, through the street. On the sidewalk or whatever. So I have a very strong memories of going to his house for pool parties, just like randomly, and getting in trouble for not calling because the rule was always you have to call when you get there.
Oh yeah.
Because there was no cell phones, you couldn't text. You had to use a landline to call. And I would always forget.
Yeah. Now, did he ever bring you around for 4th of July parties?
No.
No, those were the bomb.
It's so funny. I don't know if I've ever thought about the fact that I am essentially living in the general area you guys would have grown up and run around in. I have never really thought about that at all. Because granted, I know I'm on the opposite side of the street.
Yeah.
But I never thought about the fact that like you guys were in there. And
I probably went trick-or-treating at your house like 2 or 3 times before you even moved into it.
Which it's just funny to think about. I've never really
I
thought
for
about
sure
that.
did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just I had never thought once about that. So it's just kind of weird for me to sit here and think about it.
Yeah, we basically moved in at the same time. I think my parents moved in first.
Yeah.
And then your parents moved in maybe 2 years later. Just on the same side. I would constantly be walking to his house during the summer. Another person, which I'll edit out the name, but I was friends with him.
I was friends with his sister.
He used to live on my street. This was a guy who lived on my street, but down on the other side of the cul-de-sac. And they had a pool there. And we would, swim there, obviously. And then probably in like the 3rd grade, 4th grade, they moved to the same neighborhood, but
like 3 streets over.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was quite a walk. It was probably like a 20-minute walk.
Maybe like a 10-minute walk.
Okay.
It's a big hill. It would take more time for Joe to walk home than it would take for him to walk there because it's mostly downhill.
Okay, then coming back uphill
on the way there.
I'll say I had a friend that the hill we go down to get to, like, because I had a friend lived further down one hill, and I had a friend lived at the top of the other hill, and I had a friend lived on that one street that was further over. But the one at the bottom hill, he also had a pool. So you talk about that, made me think about going down to that pool. And when you talked about calling, I think about I think I remember this happening in the summer. We would go hang out. He had a trampoline, he had a pool, and so I'd always go to Kyle's to like hang out. And I remember the one time we were jumping on the trampoline, and we made up some dumb game. I was in like 5th grade of like, we had a bunch of shoes on the trampoline. We were trying to like kick the other person's shoes off the trampoline and keep our shoes on.
This sounds
a
not
stupid kid
safe.
game. Yeah, no, I broke my left wrist, I think, falling off the trampoline. And his mom was a nurse, and I remember I fell off the trampoline. And I was like, my arm doesn't feel good. I like couldn't tie my shoes, so I just put my shoes on and just walked home. And like, it's not that far of a walk. It's not like a big a deal. But I remember I got home, and my mom, I was like, my arm doesn't feel good. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then like another friend's mom was also a nurse and happened to be there picking up her son or something. And it was just such a weird thing. And she's like, I think it's broken. And then she was talking to Diane later, and Diane's like, oh my gosh, he left the house like hurt. Like, and she was like mortified that I didn't. Like,
yeah.
He could have called. I could have driven him. We could have done all this stuff. And like, like I said, it's a very short walk, but
yeah,
just made me think about that.
Yeah. So back to my neighborhood and how it's way more awesome than either of your neighborhoods. Every 4th of July, we would do a major parade, like decorate your bikes. It was the coolest parade ever. That was like maybe 4 cars long. Because like you would like decorate your bike, or like your parents would like decorate a wagon to like drag your younger siblings around in. And we'd start up at the top of the neighborhood, and there'd always be a fire truck, and we just have to wait for the fire truck to show up. Like, okay, so we said this time, but like they might not get here until like we said 12. They might not get here until like 12:30 though. So we're just all going to be chilling up at the top of the neighborhood until they show up. But if we were lucky, we would get an ambulance too. And then we just go down the neighborhood. And then we'd end up in the cul-de-sac down the street from my house, where a bunch of dads would be grilling burgers or grilling hot dogs. And there'd be like juice boxes and chips. And then the fire truck would hook into the hydrant. And if we were lucky, we would get a half hour plus of fire hose time. If we were not lucky, they would take us down to the end of the neighborhood and then leave.
Oh, okay.
Or if it was nice, we'd get a minimum of 10 minutes of fire truck time before they would have to like go on a run or something.
Yeah.
So I actually took Lily last year.
Is that something you guys did a lot for 4th of July? I didn't even think about 4th of July memories. That's a whole thing in and of
so
itself.
if we were in town, we would do the parade and we would hang out. And when was that? That would have been like 2018-ish. I was at Mom's house for 4th of July. I think just because like I did something with his sister, or cause I think she was like, I was hanging out with his sister for the day, and I was like, well, let's just go hang out at my mom's house. We can watch the parade and we can go hang out at the bottom of the hill.
I don't remember why, but I do remember you were with my sister.
Yeah. And then like I ran into my friend because she was randomly there too. And I was like, hey, we're drinking together, because we never got to do that. And we were just hanging out and just like talking about where our lives were now. And I miss that neighborhood. But, well, maybe we'll have to sneak our way into the 4th of July celebration this year.
Well, that brings me to block parties, because that was kind of like a block party, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't do it on 4th of July. We would do it in like August. It was always so if you were going down, we were on the right side of the street, and the cul-de-sac was always on the left. So it was the opposite side of the cul-de-sac from us. But there used to be a ton of kids on the street, variety of ages. We would just have tables in the middle of the street, in the middle of the circle or whatever, and then just tons of stuff. Like basically, if you remember the Sandlot, and there was the 4th of July, and they were running past all the food and stuff. It was just a smorgasbord of food that everyone brought. And I remember my mom, her big thing for the block party was making homemade like silly putty.
Oh man.
And
that was before like homemade silly putty was people's livelihoods, because that's what it is now.
It's funny, gosh, you say Sandlot. That's a summer memory to me, because a friend's house I'd stay at, every time I stayed there, we watched the Sandlot. I think that's the movie I've probably seen the most times in my life, just from that.
Well, it's like
and
every
as
time
you
you
guys
go to
know-
your friend's house, you like watch the same like 3 movies.
And other friends said we didn't really watch movies.
Yeah, but like as a girl, like it was always some like Mary-Kate and Ashley movie, like How the West Was Fun, or
not that we wouldn't watch movies, but sometimes we would. But it was just funny. It was like, man, I was like, The Sandlot again. And you know me, I mean, I enjoy movies, but I'm not. I've seen so few.
Yeah.
And
you're too busy running.
It's just one of those like. It's just always funny. So it's just I always just think of Steven every time. I think of Steven. I think of staying in his house. I think of like The Sandlot. And I think that happened more in the summer with Steven. But it was just so I just always think of that movie.
So let's talk briefly about like traveling, like summer vacation. You mentioned that you didn't really do a whole lot, but there must have been like
there were some, yeah. So
some holdout
it's
memories.
yeah. So it's kind of weird, I guess. I think more about so we went on 3 trips throughout my childhood, like 3 what I would call like classic, like travel far to go on a vacation. We went to the Smoky Mountains. We went to the Niagara Falls in Canada. And then we went to the Isle of Palm in South Carolina. And it's kind of, I feel like I have a lot of memories more so, at least the first 2, of the hotel pool.
Yeah.
Which
was always the best part.
As a kid, it's just funny because like the Smoky Mountains, I think I was in like 3rd grade, and Niagara Falls was like 4th grade maybe. But Niagara Falls, so I have a cousin. I have multiple cousins, but I have a cousin the same age as me, and then my brother that's 3 years older. He has a cousin that's also the same age as him. So the 4 of us were very close growing up. Did a lot of stuff together, and they went on that trip. And I just remember I remember seeing the Niagara Falls and like, oh yeah, cool. They did like the rainbow thing with the falls, and it was like misty. But I have a lot of memories of us just like doing stupid, like being in the pool, just being dumb, the 4 of us in the pool.
Yeah.
Which is very funny because like, pay to go to, we drove to Canada, but I also
still have to pay. It's like you're still paying to go there by gas
yeah.
wear on your car.
And we did a lot of stuff. I'm sure we did. I know we did a lot of touristy things. I almost got hit by a bus in Canada because I remember my parents grabbed me because I started to walk into this crosswalk at a bad time. So that was kind of funny. I almost drowned in the Smoky Mountains. But we were like hiking, and I didn't know how to swim at the time because when I was really, really little, I hated the water. And we used to have we had to pass Sunlight Pool, Coney Island, like for a long time. And I just never took swim lessons. I never learned. And we were in the Smoky Mountains, I'm pretty sure it was 3rd grade. And I just remember we were hiking, and there was like some kind of body of water, and I remember I like had slipped and got like sucked into like one of those like little like suction pools and like pulled way underwater, and like I popped back out or whatever, or like got pulled out or something. And I just remember then I was just like, my brother was like, all right, we got to teach you how to swim. And so I remember learning how to swim late at night in the pool in the Smoky Mountains motel or whatever we were staying at, and just like I remember my brothers threw me in the pool and we're just like trying to teach me how to swim just because I almost drowned.
Not your parents, your siblings. That's like true youngest child energy right there.
Big time.
You know what? I don't. You know how to swim. You go teach your little brother how to do that, please.
But even then, like, there's something magical to me about in the summer, like swimming in a pool later at night. Because even like as like it's like now I have 2 siblings with pools, but like two of my brothers lived in some condos or some apartments, we're going to call them. They had a pool. We would go there all the time in the summer. Yeah. And I'd have been like late grade school, early high school, and I just remember going there and just like. We'd be hanging out, and we'd go down to the pool, and be in the pool. It's late at night, like it's lit up with like a light. And we would just, I think that at one point they got like a key from the person that would close it, and they would close it. So we would just be down there late. And it's just something about a very magical summer memory of like being in a pool late at night. It's just very like good feelings.
We can just like float and watch the stars and just feel like you are in with the stars.
And have that deep conversation. Because I had friends in like high school. I mean, deep for that age, but I just remember in like high school too, in front of the pool, and like just like. You're sharing your teenage soul to your friends, just talking in the pool.
Pool parties was a big thing for sure. But let's continue with the vacation.
Sorry, vacation. My bad.
Yeah,
you're good. We were still in that thread.
Yeah. So for us, we would always go to Myrtle Beach and Siesta Key, which I don't know why, but Cincinnati people, that's like the go-to places. Siesta Key and Myrtle Beach. I think there's a skyline in Siesta Key or Myrtle.
I think
they got to stay close to the chili.
I know.
No. The chili is there because Cincinnatians keep going there.
That's fair. I'll say I've been to the beach once in my life, and it was that Isle of Palm trip.
And we would always drive. And the memory that I always share about family vacations and going to Myrtle Beach in particular was when my 1-year-old sister was around and we were going, and my mom saved money for us to go. We stayed at a hotel, and it was a 12-hour drive. Is that Myrtle Beach?
Ish, yes, 12 hours.
12-hour drive. We had a van, but it was an older, beaten-up van or whatever. I think it had a wood strip on it.
Classic.
Classic minivan. Or I guess it wasn't. Was it a minivan?
Yeah, it would have been a minivan.
Yeah, and it didn't have any of the fancy. I know some of my friends, they had at that time, TVs and cars were a thing, or they were starting to be a thing. We didn't have that. We had a 20-inch TV that sat on my parents' dresser.
Like the one your grandma would have over her fridge in the kitchen.
I'll say, we had a 10-inch TV that was black and white with an antenna that my mom took on. I remember on our Canada trip, and was watching I Love Lucy or something. We had a very small, similar, very, very tiny portable TV that you could also plug into the wall.
Well, it wasn't portable. It was just a 20-inch TV that lived in my parents' room, and it just so happened to have a VHS player under it.
Oh, okay.
Attached to it.
Yeah.
And so they bought a TV, a cigarette.
Oh yeah.
Adapter.
Yep.
So they put it in between the passenger and the drivers. And that's how we watched. That's how we got our entertainment. And my little sister, being one, they brought one Barney tape for my sister.
And
you watched that same tape?
And a variety of other tapes.
Oh, okay.
They had Jaws and stuff for me and my brother.
And I think
how much younger is your sister than you?
She was about 10 years younger.
I did not realize there was that big of an age gap between you and your sister.
Yes.
Yeah. My brother's about 2.5
Okay.
years younger, right? 3 years. Okay, 3 years. I was born in September. He was born in June, so.
Okay. No, that's fine. I just didn't realize there was that big of an age gap between you and your sister.
Yeah, I was 9 when she was born, but she was born in June and I was born in September. So I call it 10 years, just rounding up. My sister has never, at that point, never watched Barney before. So my mom just was like, we'll bring it and see if it works. But it was literally one episode. Mm-hmm. And we watched, and she liked it.
And if the 1-year-old ain't happy, nobody's happy in a car trip.
So we watched that Barney tape for a very long time. And that's just a very solid memory that I have of that trip, which is kind of, I'm sure my parents would say that's kind of frustrating. But I do remember also in that trip, we stayed at a hotel and it was raining, so we couldn't go outside or anything like that. But the hotel had a game night. They had a conference room where you could go and play card games or something. And I remember going to that and meeting a little kid my age. And we would, I guess, hang out when it was raining. There was nothing to do. You couldn't go to the beach. You couldn't go, to the pool or anything like that. It was also kind of a tricky situation, too, because the 1-year-old had the nap. And, of course, one of the parents would have to go up and nap with the 1 year with my sister. Mm-hmm. So I think that was the last vacation that we rented, a hotel. Mm. We would always go, the Airbnb route.
Before Airbnb was the thing.
The condo. Yeah. You would find a condo.
HomeAway or June's Realty, whoever you could. You'd find a company and hope that whatever house you were picking would be a good one.
Yeah, we also went to Disney World in 1998, the year before my sister was born.
Mm-hmm. And you guys went again in 2008.
Yes.
And Joe's sister is convinced that I went on that trip to Disney with him. I did not go on that trip to Disney with him.
Mm.
Yeah, so vacation, it was enough where I remember it and I was appreciative of it, but it wasn't every year. It was maybe on average once every 2 years or once every 3 years that we would go to the beach. And the beach was typically our destination.
Yeah. So, like, y'all had siblings to keep you entertained. It was me and my parents. And, like, my parents owned their own business. So we would mostly do weekend trips because you either have to shut down the business for a week or trust the people that are working for you enough to keep the business running for a week when you're gone. So it would be a mix of the two. But I also had, like, grandparents that would want to do stuff with me. So I would go on bus trips with my grandma. It would be a lot of old people.
Yeah.
And, like, one kid my age. And we would immediately be best friends for whatever that bus trip was. Because literally no one else was even close to being our age.
I'm just picturing you on, like, this, like, remember those, like, hover around commercials where the two old ladies are at the Grand Canyon, just like, or like when I went out west, it was amazing the number of spots. Like we were at Bryce Canyon, and it was like people. There was like buses of the elderly just getting bussed into all the little stops.
That was me
hopping off the bus to look around, getting back on the bus.
Yep. So like I went to Niagara Falls with her, and that was fun. And like we had to like have a copy of my birth certificate so she could take me across the border and I could come back. And
you needed your birth certificate? You need your birth certificate?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, because I was a minor, and it was before you needed a passport.
Okay, yeah,
so
same
now,
here. I didn't realize my parents needed my birth certificate when we went.
Now, I'm not sure if how correct this is, but like if we wanted like Joe's parents to take Lily, I'm like 75% sure to 95% sure, Lily would need a passport. They would need a copy of her birth certificate, and they would need a notarized letter from us saying that they are allowed to have our take child. Her
that's fair.
Across the border.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because when the last time we went with Club to Canada, it was like, okay, if you're a minor, like you either need to bring a parent with you, or we have to have like all of this paperwork signed out saying that we can take you with us.
Yeah.
So like I do stuff like that.
Niagara Falls might be a little different. Like, did you stay in?
We stayed in Canada.
Okay. Yeah, same.
We were on the Canadian side.
We crossed the border, but also when we went, you didn't need to be a citizen. You didn't need a passport.
Yeah. Like we visited my grandpa a lot, but that was more. That had to have been more in like the winter time because my grandpa was a snowbird. So unless if he was like opening the house for us to hang out down there to then close it and come back with us, which I doubt he did. Any of my trips to Disney that were attached to that would have been in the winter or like early spring. But like I go with my grandma too, because like she would like fly down and we'd hang out with him for a week and then we'd fly back up. Because I call her my grandma. They were not married. Mostly because she just could not live in Florida for 6 months out of the year, and he refused to live in Cincinnati full time. But we hung out on our friend's houseboat for a week. That was fun. We went to Gatlinburg a few times. But again, it was like me and my parents. Yeah. We went to Washington D.C. and like we stopped at all of these Civil War fields. And I'm like, sweet, it's another field with a cannon. This is great. Where are people my age that I can do things with?
I never thought about the traveling with an only child. I never thought about that at all.
Like my saving grace was like I would have like a coloring book and the looks like a book giant art set where I had crayons and markers and oil pastels. But who knows how to use oil pastels? Those are exotic. Because I would just like have to like color or read in the car.
Yeah.
Because even though we were ahead on the technology curve when it came to computers, since we had a computer and I could play computer games, if I wanted any kind of video game system, I would have to buy it myself.
Yeah.
They're like, we will buy you things for the computer, but no, you can't have a PlayStation because we have a computer.
Nice Game Boy or Game Boy Color.
Yeah, so I didn't get a Game Boy until I paid for it myself. Yeah. And then I was in a Game Boy Advance. What else did we do? Went to the drag strip a lot because my dad raced his car. So I'd help him out with that. Those were a lot of summer nights. Smell of burning rubber and high octane fuel burning is great for your soul. Not so great for your mind. Yeah, it was just lots of summer camps. Because
never been.
What camp can we put the kid in? So like I did the camp that your sister works at.
We did Girl Scout stuff too, didn't you?
Not so much back then. But like, so like the CRC, Cincinnati Recreation Commission, like all of their different places have a summer camp where it's a day camp all summer long. I did that 2 different years. Was it the summer of 2001? No, it was summer of 2002.
Yeah.
I was at like a different camp every week. So like I'd be at camp for a week, I'd be home for a week. I'd be at camp for a week, I'd be home for a week. I'd be at camp for 2 weeks, I'd be home for a week. Or it'd be like you'd have different day camps, different like week-long day camps in the city that you're going to. Okay. And then like this grandparent would drop you off and a different grandparent would pick you up. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. And I'm sure that I spent a lot of time working at the family business too.
I was going to say the other part too, like 2 working parents is the other, like I grew up, my dad worked, but then my mom was a stay-at-home mom through everything. As I got a little bit older, she would take on some part-time jobs for just a little bit of help. Like she worked at like the Drug Emporium, and she was like the 3rd shift donut maker at Meijer, or like different stuff like that. But she was always staying. Like growing up, it was like we just were home with mom.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would alternate between like clocking in and shredding papers and turning the island of tables in the front into my own little personal clubhouse.
Oh yeah,
because the curtains, the tablecloths would get down to the ground, so I could just, as long as I was quiet, I could hang out down there. And like it's like if customers are there, like you can't make a peep, or you have to like get out before they notice you. But yeah, I would hang out there a lot, and then hanging out with the neighborhood kids. We did a lot of trips though, but it was all like short trips. Like we went caving a lot, which was crazy because my dad was tall. I mean, like not as tall as Joe. Like to me, it seemed like I was like, oh my goodness, are you gonna be able to fit?
So tall, yeah.
You're so tall. I miss caving though. We need to do that more often.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm claustrophobic. I don't like small spaces. Understandably, I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we went to Mammoth Cave. We went to Great Smoky Mountains a few times, and we'd hit different caves up each time. Just like all of the things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whenever we were doing that Civil War stuff, that was a pain. And like we went to Monticello. I think that Jefferson's house.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is cool, and like I'm learning about slavery and stuff, but I'm like 8. This is not super entertaining for me.
I hated history stuff too as a kid. I was like, I don't care. My dad was a huge history buff too.
Yeah. I mean, especially now, like after watching Hamilton and like all the history stuff that I've read about, I'm like, little Caroline, why were you not paying more attention? I would like to remember these facts.
I mean, history for me was just you have to memorize a bunch of stuff for the test.
Yeah. Even just in general, just like, I don't care. As a kid, I hated it. I was like, this is boring.
It was stupid stuff. Like, what is the exact quote on this exact day or something? Yeah, it's just stupid stuff you had to memorize. It seemed like busy work. It's a shame how they teach, history and stuff. And then they test you on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to memorize a bunch of weird stuff that doesn't mean anything.
But it's the summertime, so that don't matter.
No. So there's no school in the summer.
Nope.
So there's that. I didn't have any homework. Did you guys have homework?
Not until high school.
Yeah, so did not until high school.
I didn't have homework in high school either.
La-di-da.
I wasn't in the smart honors class.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. There's a lot of summer reading.
Yeah, I think there was like a summer or two where mom like attempted to get like those. I do remember like getting a box of, here are your like 2nd to 3rd grade study things, where it's like little books for every subject to like work through over the summer to make sure you don't lose your information. I think she tried that once or twice. I mean, I was very much like grade oriented, so it probably worked for like a week or 2 until I was like, I'm done with this.
But speaking of books, and this will be my last memory, because we talked about a lot of this, it was the Harry Potter book releases, which Harry Potter was a huge part of my life.
What is this? Some kind of nerd thing? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it was. But we started on that Myrtle Beach trip that I talked about. That's when it started. As a 11-year-old, my mom we borrowed a book from the neighbor kid, and she read it when we were at the pool or on the ocean. Like, she would read it to us. They had the first Harry Potter book, and then she would read it on the way home in between the Barneys. You know, when my sister was napping, and then she stopped. Like, we got home, like, at the second last chapter, like, right when they were about to reveal who the bad guy was. And I'm like, Mom, you have to keep reading. And it wasn't that and that was probably the reason why I became a reader. I mean, I did read a lot. Like, I would check out like the Goosebump books. These are probably 100 pages each. Harry Potter was like, and the books just kept getting bigger. I think the first one's like almost 300 pages, probably. 250, 300. So I didn't really have the confidence to read a book that big. So my mom was reading it, and then my interest was caught, and then she bought, you know, all the books for me, basically. It was, I think the fourth one was just coming out at that point.
Okay.
And then the movie was coming out that November. And it was August. So
here's where I'm going to get my soapbox out, and I'm going to go stand on it. Any reading that your child does is good reading. So, like, oh my goodness, my kid only reads Goosebumps. Yeah, but how many Goosebumps are they reading? Are they reading 3 Goosebumps a day? Because that's a lot of books. And whatever gets them interested in reading, it can be a comic book. It can be a book about bugs. I don't care. Whatever gets your kid reading and engaged, that's the important thing. Don't worry about the content. Worry about what it is that they're actually doing and how they're spending their time.
That was the spark, right? I didn't think I could I didn't really have the confidence to read a book that big. I don't think. I didn't think I could do it or whatever. Or I wasn't just interested, or it seemed like a lot of words.
Yeah. Well, like working in the library, and like I started volunteering at the library in middle school, and then, or I guess that would have been early high school. Like having friends that like, oh, I need to do a book report for my English class, but like I don't know what I want to write it on, and like shelving books, like I'd see all this stuff. I'm like, dude, there's a whole series of books that's based on Halo. Like, it's all fiction set in the Halo universe. Like, try one of these out. Like, oh, hey, that book was really cool. Where are the rest of them? Here, let me show you. And then that's how you can get kids into it. It doesn't have to be, oh, let's read Tom Sawyer and then let's read A Farewell to Arms. That's not what gets kids interested in reading and continuing to read. I will get off of my soapbox now.
Okay. No, so every summer, after every summer that a Harry Potter book would release, which would be every 2 years, every 2.5 years.
Ish, yeah.
Usually in the summer, usually in July, they would release a book. And I didn't go to any of the parties. Like, I think Borders had a party. We would go, my mom would drive me to Kroger, and we would sit in the parking lot until midnight because you had to wait until 12:01 for the books to come out. And because I think someone got in trouble and J.K. Rowling sued. Like, someone at one of the bookstores read the book like the day before it was supposed to come out.
Gotcha.
Snape kills Dumbledore.
So yeah, you had to wait until 12:01. So we would sit in the Montfort Heights Kroger parking lot and wait until 12:01. You'll get there about 10. Just
wait
in case,
to get the book.
Just in case there was a line, right? We didn't know anything about, it was a big deal. Harry Potter was a big deal, but no one was going to Kroger to get the books. They were all going to the bookstore.
Yeah.
I was hanging out at Borders with all the other cool kids.
I didn't know that there was, a whole community of parties and release parties. I just wanted the book. I would read it within a day.
Yeah.
So that's a strong memory that I have as well. Is there anything else that we need to touch on as far as summer memories?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I could sit here and try to think of a lot of memories, but those are all the main ones.
The main ones, yeah. I'm sure we could talk ages on this, but I think it's bedtime.
Think of your only child friends. Yeah, it was cool not having siblings, but man, those long car trips were rough.
All right, so now it is time for Joe's dad joke of the week. Are you guys ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As ready as I will ever be.
Okay, so how can you tell that the ocean is friendly?
It waves.
There you go.
Tony, you're supposed to pretend like you don't
Oh
know.
no! Well, I don't know. Sometimes people ask those things, and I was like, "What's something funny that works with it?" So I apologize if I stole the joke.
I never had someone answer the question.
Oh,
That's kind of funny. I'm gonna leave that in there.
I'm used to my Girl Scout like campfire days of like, hey, what's brown and sticky? And you're like, I don't know. What? A stick. And then you'll have to laugh because you can't act like it's the 10th time that you've heard that joke that summer.
okay. You know, I usually always people ask, I'm like, what? How can I answer this? Like, what's the riddle? How do you solve the riddle? And so I always like to try to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's not a original dad joke. So I probably picked the wrong one.
It's all good, Joe.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
On this Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, Joe.
I know.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy not Father's Day, Tony.
Thank you.
Well, that does it for this week's show. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us at Craft Parenting Podcast on all of those platforms. You can also get a hold of us via email, which is craftparentingpodcast@gmail.com.
If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Make sure to share the show. It's what helps our show grow. If you'd like to send us stuff, such as fan mail, craft supplies, or sanity, we have a P.O. box.
All this information is available on our website, which is www.craftparentingpodcast.com.
That's where we post the show notes, plus some blog posts about stuff that doesn't make it into the podcast.
And Tony, thank you so much for being here again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for helping us eat our food.
Not a problem.
Yeah, we had a great dinner before, just crock pot ribs. If you come on the show and you eat dinner with us.
If there's like a 90% chance it'll be crock pot ribs.
Yeah. And with that, I'm Joe.
And I'm Caroline.
See you next time on the Craft Parenting Podcast.
Peace.